In 2026, the price of a British home is not simply a figure on an estate agent's window, it is a definition of your freedom. But here is the uncomfortable truth that nobody on the high street will say out loud. What a bank tells you that you can borrow and what you can actually afford to live with are two completely different worlds. The lender is looking at one thing, a multiplier. For most of you, that ceiling is 4.5 times your gross income. Anchor everything today on a 5% average for a 5-year fixed rate, because that is the cost of money in 2026. So today we climb the salary ladder, rung by rung, and at every single level, we are going to separate the lending fantasy from the living reality. Because the bank measures your salary, it does not measure your survival. Before we climb, let's ground all of this in one single number, because it quietly changes everything that follows. At a 5% rate, over a standard 25-year term, every £100,000 you borrow costs you roughly £585 every month. So the next time a lender slides a big, flattering figure across the desk, translate it. That number is not a trophy. It is a standing order that leaves your account on the same day, month after month, in a good year and a bad one, whether the boiler holds or the roof leaks. Hold that figure in your head as we climb, because every rung on this ladder is really just a bigger version of that same monthly promise. Level 1, the entry tier, £25,000 to £30,000. Let's start at the bottom of the ladder. On a salary between £25,000 and £30,000, the bank's multiplier hands you a borrowing ceiling of roughly £135,000. Now look at the map. In the northeast, where the average home sits near £165,000, you are almost there. A modest deposit closes the gap. But transport that same salary to London, where the average is £540,000, and the ladder simply has no bottom rung. You are not priced out by a little. You are priced out by a different postcode entirely. This is where the shared ownership mirage appears. It looks like a doorway. In reality, you buy a slice of the bricks, you pay rent on the slice you don't own, and you carry the service charge on all of it. You get the responsibilities of an owner with the security of a tenant. For many at this tier, it is not a step onto the ladder, it is a very expensive step beside it. Level 2, the professional tier, £45,000 to £55,000. Climb to the professional tier, £45,000 to £55,000, and the numbers finally start to breathe. At the top of this band, 4.5 times your income means borrowing around £247,500. On paper, the home counties open up. A real home in a real town becomes visible. But this is exactly where the state quietly takes back the pay rise you thought you'd earned. The moment your income crosses the frozen higher rate threshold of £50,270, every extra pound is taxed at 40%. This is fiscal drag. The thresholds stay frozen while your wages creep up, so inflation drags you into higher tax without you ever feeling richer. And this is what a high loan-to-value mortgage really feels like at this level. Picture yourself cycling up a steep hill into a constant headwind. Your legs are burning, your effort is maximum, and yet the scenery barely changes. You are working twice as hard just to hold your position. A stretched LTV does exactly this. Most of your monthly payment is fighting the interest, not building the equity. You are pedaling with everything you have, simply to stay in the same place. Level 3. The top 10% tier, £80,000 to £95,000. Now we reach the top 10% of earners, £80,000 to £95,000. A single applicant here can borrow around £400,000, genuine buying power, and yet this is where one of the cruelest traps in the system is waiting, the child benefit taper. If you have children, the moment your income climbs through this band, HMRC begins clawing that benefit back through the high-income child benefit charge until it disappears completely. Two parents can each earn just under the line and keep every penny. One parent earning the same household total alone can lose the lot. The system does not reward the household. It punishes the individual who carries it. So how do you know if you can truly afford a home at this level? Forget the mortgage payment for a moment and run the resilience test. Imagine structural damp discovered behind a wall. A sudden £3,000 repair lands on your desk, unannounced. Real wealth is not about the size of the house. It is about your margin of safety. If that £3,000 bill is an annoyance, a bad week, a raided savings pot, and then forgotten, you can afford the home. If it is a catastrophe, a maxed card, a sleepless month, a crisis, then the truth is simple. The house owns you. You do not own it. Level 4. The elite squeezed here. £125,000 to £160,000. Higher still, £125,000 to £160,000, and you would assume the pressure lifts. It does not. This is the elite squeeze, home to the most bizarre marginal tax rate in the entire British system, the 60% trap. Between £100,000 and roughly £125,000, your personal allowance, that first £12,570 you normally earn tax-free, is stripped away. £1 of allowance for every £2 you earn. Combine that with your higher rate tax, and each pound in this zone is effectively taxed at 60%. This is why the smartest earners at this tier stop chasing a bigger mortgage and start defending their income. Pension contributions into a SIP, tax-efficient shelter inside an ISA. They are not buying more bricks, they are buying back their own allowance from HMRC, and it is often the highest return decision they will ever make. Level 5. High net worth, £250,000 plus. And finally, above £250,000, something fundamental changes. The conversation stops being about income and becomes about equity. At this level, the mortgage multiplier is almost irrelevant. The bank no longer asks how much do you earn, it asks what do you own. These buyers move with cash, with assets, with leverage against existing wealth. The stamp duty on a prime home is a number that would terrify most of the country, and to them, it is a rounding error. This is the quiet line where money stops being something you work for and becomes something that works for you. But wealthy or entry level, one rule governs every rung of this ladder, and I want you to write it down. Take your net pay, the money that actually lands in your account after tax, after national insurance, after your student loan plan 2 repayment of 9% above the threshold, after the council tax on a Band D home. Now add up your mortgage and your genuine essentials. If that total is quietly eating more than 30% of your net pay, you have crossed the line. Below 30%, the house is your shelter. Above it, the house is your master. It will dictate the holidays you cancel, the job you cannot leave, and the risks you can no longer take. The mortgage the bank offered you was never a measure of what you could afford. It was only a measure of what you could survive. So when you look at these salary tiers, do not ask the bank's question, what is the maximum I can borrow? Ask the freedom question instead, what is the smallest, safest home that lets me breathe? Because in 2026, the goal was never to own the most impressive house on the street. The goal is to own your time, your choices, and your peace of mind. A home should be the floor you stand on, not the ceiling pressing down on you. Choose freedom over bricks, every single time. If this video helped you, like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.